What's up? We're back. Wednesday, Christmas week, holiday week, crazy stuff. Football schedule is insane. Is this what the future of the football schedule is going to look like, by the way? We'll talk about that. First day live on YouTube Live. We switched over from Twitch, and I'm liking it. So YouTube, Mike the Mush, subscribe, hit the likes, leave some comments, join the chat. You can watch the VODs after the show is over. Everything in one place. Very easy. Thank you, YouTube, for making it pretty easy. And we'll roll along and see how that goes. The schedule for now is Monday, Wednesday, Friday, but it's a holiday week. And come the new year, we might switch that up a little bit. But we'll see. Stay tuned. And if I'm ever not live, at Mike Mush Sports, you can catch me on Twitter and Instagram, constantly tweeting about how these games are going and panicking and then succeeding. Because Monday's picks swept. Feels good. We got the hat back on. You see the ball rolling around. Feels good. What is this called? It's not a tassel. I don't know. Christmas ball, tassel, hat, Santa. That's what it is. Last weekend, if you watched the show, we did not do well in football, but we knew going into it that it was a weird week with COVID, and it continued. So I said tread lightly, but Monday we nailed both picks. And at the end of Monday's show, stick around always at the end of the shows we give our picks. But Monday we did a teaser with Vikings down to the money line at the Bears and Eagles down to the money line against the Washington football team. Those both hit at -110, so that felt good. We'll talk about that in a second. And then NBA parlay Monday night, we had Bulls versus the Rockets. They crush. Jazz versus the Hornets. They crush. And Warriors versus the Kings. They crush. -120. That felt completely free. Sometimes you can sneak those in basketball, and it feels good. So we got that. We're on YouTube. We talked about that. We're making cash. Talked about that. We got to dive into box scores. I want to talk about briefly for some of them because the games weren't always fantastic. But all four football games that happened Monday and Tuesday, we'll catch up on those. Then I want to talk about Kyrie coming back to the Nets, maybe. A little basketball talk. I know it has to be a football week, I guess. But I love hoops. And I'm actually a little bit excited for when football season's over. It's a weird thing to say, but it frees up the show for a lot of other things to talk about. But we'll get there. We'll get there. We can't rush it. Only a couple weeks left, which is weird. Even in the long season, it felt like it was dragging. Now I'm like, wait, it's going to be over? And then after that, we'll talk Thursday night football. And then, of course, we will be back on Friday. I know it's Christmas Eve. I'm going to do the show anyway. We will do live. I might do it during the day. Stay tuned. You can check the Twitter at Mike Mush Sports. I will know more probably by tomorrow, but if not, Friday morning. Stay tuned. Hit the notification bell so you know when I go live. And then we'll do the full Week 16 breakdown like we always do on Football Fridays, and then we'll get back to it next Monday. And, of course, we have picks tonight. I'm not going to leave you hanging, but you got to wait for the end for that. Although, maybe in the new year we'll get some graphics. We put it here, or maybe here. I don't know. It's hard to say. Let's dive into some scores, huh? Some box scores, some schedules, some standings, some rabbit holes that will probably go down. We always do. I guess we start with Raiders-Browns. I mean, look, I'm feeling less and less of a need to talk about every single game as this season moves along and winds down to the end. But this is two 500 teams, both of which can make the playoffs. We'll open the playoff standings quickly here. I mean, look, it's crazy in the AFC. There's going to be 7 teams that make it, and there are from 8-6 and 7-7. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 teams. 10 teams vying for 1, 2, 3, 4 spots. That's crazy. We knew this season had a lot of parity, but jeez. And if you extend it to 9-5, it's everyone but the Chiefs. That's wild. All these teams within 2 games of one another, and then you get the Jets, Jags, and Texans down at the end. Freudian slip, I said Titans because I don't think they're very good. But and ESPN does a good job of keeping the tiebreakers open. So if you're ever curious about that, we're not going to go into that rabbit hole. I mean, we still got 3 weeks left. But the point here is that the Raiders and the Browns both needed this game really bad, and I know it was decimated due to COVID. so it's hard to put too much stock into it. But the Raiders do pull it out on a last-second field goal. They tried really hard to blow this game. I didn't really take notes on this game because it's Raiders-Browns, and it was 5 o'clock on Monday, and we had just ended our show. But it felt like the Raiders were just dominating because Cleveland had nobody. I mean, Nick Mullins went 20 for 30 with a touchdown and actually didn't turn the ball over. That was as good as you could ever want Nick Mullins to play in this game, right? I mean, he checked down like always, 150 yards, but still didn't turn it over and completed 66%. That's pretty good. Nick Chubb ran it well too. Like, they could have won this game. They could have somehow snuck this out. But when you're down 10-0 with a quarterback that you don't trust to come back, it's like, all right. But then they did score on a short drive because of a fumble. And so Vegas is driving. It's first down. And Carr gets sacked and fumbles. And he got hurt, but he came back. He got hit hard on that play. And that's a killer. I mean, can't blame Carr for getting blown up, but, like, that killed them. Can't fumble that ball. And Mullins finds a way to get down. I mean, they ran Chubb as hard as possible. But then they get it to 7. And then after the field goal, I was like, all right, this is open. Autoplay. Get out of here. After the field goal, I'm like, this has to be over. It just has to be. I don't see them coming down and scoring another touchdown without another turnover. So then they go 3 and out, and I'm like, yeah, okay, grind out the clock. This is over. Raiders can't move the ball either. Browns D is still good. I still believe in the Browns defense. They have had some weird games where they gave up like 50 to the Chargers, but they still have Myles Garrett, so he's going to wreck games. And then they go on a 14-play, 8-minute drive, and it's just nonstop Chubb. I mean, Chubb run, 1 pass, Chubb run, 2 passes, Chubb run, 3 passes, 4 passes, Chubb run was a touchdown, called a hold, 5 passes, then Chubb run, 6 passes. And then they actually did pass in the red zone, which is so weird. Because after the hold, I guess it's 1st and 20 from the 21, and they throw for 3 yards. Then it's 2nd and 17, and they run it, which is their last chance to run it, and then you have to throw on 3rd and 4th. So I guess it ended up with more passes than I thought. But in any case, they get the touchdown. They take the lead. Carr throws a bad pick here. I mean, I like Derek Carr. I really do, but he did not show it in this game. It was a bad, bad look. And then you figure it's over the other way, but then you get a 3 and out because Nick Mullins is the quarterback. They run it with Chubb, 2nd and 8. They run it again. And of course, 3rd and 3. I mean, you got to give him the ball again, I guess, although play action would have worked for a touchdown probably at that point. And then they have to punt it, and you're like, geez, this is really going to go wrong, and it does. It was a weird close game. You can't take too much from it. The only note I wanted to make was that the Raiders, despite winning this game, when I watch the Browns, at least they have an identity. They had 1 million people out due to COVID in this one. I get why they lost. The Raiders, aside from their season going completely sideways, their coach going AWOL and suing the NFL and probably will win. That's a topic for another day. And then the Ruggs thing, and they just don't have skill players, and Waller's been hurt for a while. And they win this game, but I come out of it going, well, they have to blow it up next year, right? And yet they're 7-7, might make the playoffs. But, I mean, everyone's going to fade them in the playoffs. They're going to be 10-point dogs against anybody. Maybe not if you get a couple weird teams in, but I don't see it. So what do you do with Carr? I mean, what's Carr's contract? Derek Carr, Spotrac has football, right? Yeah. So he is signed next year and then a free agent the year after. So if they wanted to trade him on a rental, they probably could. I was wondering, if you replace Baker with Derek Carr, is this team a lot better, this Cleveland team? I think they kind of are. Like, Derek Carr has really good stats. I think. Oh, autofill, I don't want you. I still believe that he can do some things. He's only 30. He's had some really good years. He completes a high percentage of passes. I mean, since 2018, he's 68, 70, 67, 68 completion percentage. He's been over 4,000 yards every year. His touchdown to interception isn't great because they don't have good skill players. I think that's probably why, and the team hasn't been awesome. But they always hover around 500 even when they're bad. Doesn't that tell you that your quarterback's probably solid? He's got like an 8 yards per attempt. He's just been rock solid steady for them. And he deserves better, and I think they have to go through a blow it up phase. I don't see how they turn this thing around quickly. They don't have a coach. They don't have any receivers. They don't have much of anything. Their defense is okay sometimes. Their pass rush is good. Secondary I don't really love. They have a couple people. In any case, I guess maybe they give them one more year, but do you even want to be 500 next year if you're them, if you're electing to blow it up? So if they traded him to the Browns, like, there's a bunch of teams, we keep going over it, that next year need a quarterback. And if you look at, I mean, who knows what the Titans will do, but we'll leave them out of it. Colts, I guess they're keeping Wentz because they look good. Huntley's going to be available from the Ravens. The Steelers need a quarterback. That's one. Vegas might want a young change if we're talking about getting rid of Carr, so that's 2. Cleveland 3. They're going to try to replace Baker, or maybe they won't, but they should. I like Baker too, but they just need, like, their window is win now. Like, can you spend another year trying to figure out if Baker's the guy? I don't know. Broncos are 4. Texans need a quarterback, although they probably like Davis Mills, so maybe we'll leave that off. But at least 4. The Jaguars don't. And then we're talking NFC. Eagles, maybe, although they have Minshew, who I like, but he could be a possibility for another team. Saints 5. Washington probably 6, looking for a quarterback. Falcons should be, that's 7. Panthers should be, that's 8. Seahawks might get rid of Russ, that's 9. Giants need a quarterback, that's 10. Bears probably have theirs. Lions are 11. 11 teams that need a quarterback, some of which are pretty much set to win now, like we've talked about with the Pittsburghs and the Saints and all that kind of jazz. Denver. So is Derek Carr a backup plan to Rodgers and Wilson? And ahead of the Minshews of the world, or at least similar, and then Huntley is in the mix, so that's 5 off the top of my head without going too far down this rabbit hole, and 11 teams to fill, and there's not that many high-profile quarterbacks coming out of the draft, so I could see Derek Carr going to another team next year and having some success if you strike out on Rodgers or Wilson. And the Browns seem like a destination there, so I don't know. It was an interesting parallel that I drew from this game that I couldn't really take a lot else from, and neither of these teams are going to make too much noise. So, because I just don't believe that Baker can get healthy. And if he doesn't, I don't see what they really do. But, well, I guess we'll see. So, yeah, I mean, what's the schedule like for the Raiders? They have Broncos this week, Colts, Chargers. They're going to not make the playoffs. They're going to lose probably all 3 of those games, but at least 2. And then the Browns play Green Bay this week. They're going to lose. It's a little bit of a spoiler for the end of the stream, but Packers, Steelers, Bengals, they're going to, I don't know. They got to try to win their last 2 games and sneak in. But the NFC North is also up for grabs, so maybe they're not done. Who knows? COVID has killed them. You can't spend too much time talking about that game. The Vikings dominate the Bears. I took the Vikings. I said to tease them. I hate taking Kirk Cousins as a road favorite, and he proved me absolutely right. He went 12 for 24. He turned it over. He had 87 passing yards. He fumbled. He looked terrible. I don't believe in Kirk Cousins. I don't think he's very good. And I think he got outplayed by Justin Fields in this game by a lot. Fields did not throw an interception. He did fumble twice and lost one, recovered one of his own. But the Bears just can't do anything. They didn't have a coaching staff in this game, which is why I really wanted to fade them. I still don't believe in the Vikings in a big game. I can't wait to fade them if they get to the playoffs, which is looking solid. I think they are better than the Eagles and the Saints. And their schedule is Rams, Packers, Bears. I mean, they can win one of those. They could go sub 500, actually. That's pretty rough. So maybe they won't make it because the Eagles play Giants, Washington, Cowboys. That seems more winnable. And the Saints, I mean, I think they're bad, but they play Dolphins, Panthers, Falcons. What do I know? They could run the table. So maybe the Vikings don't make it. And if they don't, Kirk Cousins got to go, right? I didn't put them on the list of teams that need a quarterback, but I don't like Kirk Cousins. I would implore someone to fight me about that because I just don't think he's good. He's signed for next year. I mean, I imagine they'll bring him back for next year, and then it's the same as Derek Carr, but it's $35 million in base salary. I mean, he could get cut. if that works out for them. I don't know. We're not going to go down that road. But the Bears can't win. I mean, Matt Nagy hasn't been fired. What's going on? How hasn't he been fired? Both these teams need to fire their coach, like yesterday. The Vikings can't do it because they're in a playoff race. I get it. But, geez, this all needs to stop. And the Vikings don't need a rebuild. Like, they're good. Replace the quarterback. Get someone good in there. You have Cook. You have Jefferson. You have some stuff. Your defense is still solid, but you have a win-now mode, and you're wasting time with Kirk Cousins. I mean, I know they won the game, and I bet on them. But I just don't like them. At least the Bears have an excuse. They're in a free fall. Their coach was supposed to be fired on Thanksgiving. Then they felt bad. But they need everything. I mean, Fields looks good, though. I like Justin Fields. All this talk about Mac Jones is, like, very warranted. I like Mac, too. But Fields looks good to me. It won't surprise me at all if he's better next year. They just need a coach and a couple of skill players. But you can find those. So, yeah, I mean, not too much to talk about with this game. Other than I just don't believe in Kirk Cousins. I think the Vikings are not going to make the playoffs. And yeah, I hesitate to say that I would rather be the Bears moving forward because the Vikings have Cook and Jefferson. So, like, it's just not true. But at least the quarterback situation feels more stable in Chicago. I don't know if that's a wild thing to say, but I stand by it. So we hit that one. I stayed away from this game. A lot of people probably teased the Rams down, which would have won. I anticipated that Russell Wilson would do better. The problem was DK Metcalf got shut down by Jalen Ramsey. And, you know, I stayed away from it for that reason. I thought Metcalf could have won some of those balls. He didn't. He won none of them. He looks checked out, kind of. I mean, he's trying, but some of them, he just, I don't know what happened with them. And they don't have Lockett, and it's just like I don't know. I mean, the Seahawks season is definitely over. I didn't like what I saw from Russ here, but the Rams defense looked good against him. They can't run the ball. They haven't been able to since Carson went out. DJ Dallas actually looked okay. I mean, both the running backs looked okay. It was just like constantly you would get to third down and then you just couldn't find the receiver. Like DK got 12 targets but couldn't catch the ball. He ends up with 6 catches, but it was less than that. Some of that happened in garbage time late. Not that it was really garbage time because they weren't down much. But and let's also, like, Stafford had a couple of really good throws in this game, but let's not say that they dominated either. They had 20 points, and 10 of which came in the fourth quarter. I mean, this isn't a feel-good game for the Rams, right? But it was a COVID situation, and they got through it, and you get a win. I'm not going to hate on them. But it was tied here. Like, going into the fourth quarter, it was tied. Yeah, it was tied. And they were on their own 10. 3rd and 12 on their own 10. And then they end up, I mean, that 3rd and 12 play, you get a penalty, a defensive hold for a first down. Because they didn't pick it up. And that changed the game. Because then they're still on the 15. They get a 24-yard screen. And then they just kept going. They just never stopped. And Cooper Kupp also, like, I don't know how I didn't lead with him in this game. I mean, he is the best receiver in the league. I don't even think it's close. You look at the stats, and it's just like Jonathan Taylor running back-wise, right? Receiving stats. Yards. He's 300 yards ahead of Justin Jefferson. He is 33 catches ahead of Justin Jefferson, who is incredible. Also dominating Adams, by the way, who we didn't mention, and Hill and Godwin and all these guys. Debo, who's like a running back now, but still unbelievable. 14 touchdowns. No one else has. Chase has 10, but that's about it. 20-yard catches, he's number 1. 40-yard catches, I imagine he's number 1. He sure is. And receiving first downs, he's number 1. So this is silly because it has people that have had 1 catch. But the point is, Cooper Kupp is unbelievable. He's on my fantasy team. He's leading me in the semifinals. In both semifinals, by the way. Looking up. Need to bring home a trophy, which will go in the background of the show if we win it. And I just love Cooper Kupp. He's just wide open all the time. I don't know what anyone can do to him. He's the X factor for the Rams. Not an X factor. I mean, he's what can help the Rams win a Super Bowl. They can still win because unless you are bracketing him constantly, and even then, which everyone is already doing, he's getting 10 plus targets per game and catching most of them. If you can't slow him down, it's going to be a long day. They're going to move the ball with him. On third down, he's going to make catches. So not every team has like a trump card. Can you use that phrase anymore? Not every team has a really strong Pokemon card. It's hard to play when they're down and it's 3rd and 10 and it's looking bad. You can just throw it to Kupp in double coverage and maybe he makes a play. Probably does. Sony Michel has looked better running the ball. Henderson comes back. They're rounding into form. I mean, who do they have left on the schedule? Vikings, Ravens, Niners. It's tough. It remains tough. I mean, they'll be a playoff team. Are they going to beat Green Bay? I don't know. I want to watch that game. But anyway, I don't want to talk too much about Seattle because they just look like they rolled over and died. I'm disappointed with Russell Wilson. He's my fantasy quarterback. I hope that goes well. He's got a cupcake schedule. But they look checked out. They need a rebuild. Their play calling is atrocious. I hate the way they call games. I think Pete Carroll needs to go, but he's under a huge contract. I think Russell Wilson needs to go. They need to blow the whole thing up, get some picks back because they traded some for Jamal Adams. They need to get what they can for everybody. And but I don't think they'll fire Pete Carroll. So the question becomes like, is he leading a rebuild? It's dicey for them. But anyway, we go on to Philly because I took them. And they controlled this game. I mean, they were down. Were they down 10-0? They were. But it never felt like they were in danger. They just had some weird stuff happen. Hurts threw a pass that hit Goddard, got tipped and picked, and then Hurts fumbled. And you're like, oh, God. If you just looked at the box score, you think that he's the worst quarterback in the world, which I'm not a Jalen Hurts guy if you've been watching the show. But he looked good against a team that had nobody. And they shut down Antonio Gibson running the ball, which was really impressive, actually. And Terry McLaurin, too. Like, this Philly defense is actually pretty good. I'm starting to like them more and more as time goes on. I still don't like their offense at all. And if they make the playoffs, like I've been saying about a bunch of teams, I can't wait to fade them. So I'm not really a believer in Philly, but I think they can beat bad teams. And I don't think Washington is normally terrible, but with Garrett Gilbert at quarterback, who played pretty admirably. He fumbled once, but they didn't even lose that fumble. He didn't throw a pick. I thought a lot of the backup quarterbacks actually played pretty well this week. But they were just missing too many bodies to compete in this one. It felt like a free win. And so we get that. And what do you learn from this? I mean, nothing. Washington's out. And we just looked at Philly. They have 3 divisional games to close it out. They could go make some noise. I don't think they're going to catch Dallas for the division since Dallas got a cupcake win against the Giants this week. But they can win games. They can beat 2 of those 3 teams and probably sneak in and then get smashed in the playoffs. But they have a good defensive squad, and if teams let them run on them, like if they get a good matchup against a team that can't stop the run, they can run it. They just can't really throw. But they can play D and run the ball. So if you look at the playoff standings and you figure, let's say they get in instead of the Eagles, which I think could happen. They'll be the 7. They'll be playing the 3 seed, which is currently the Bucs. That's a really bad matchup. But if the Bucs jump the Cowboys and it's a divisional game in Dallas, would it shock anyone if Dallas just blew a game to the Eagles in the playoffs? Not really. I'd be betting Dallas, which I'm a mush, as the show says. So this all kind of checks out. Could they beat the Cardinals? I mean, maybe. The Cardinals have looked like a sieve against the run lately. I don't know. That could happen. I don't like any of these matchups, but I understand how with a good defense and a running game, how they would be a little bit of a scary team and could at least make the playoffs. So we'll see. We'll see what happens Friday, how I feel about their games on a short week, because they have to deal with that too. And so do the Rams and so do the Seahawks, which is tough. I don't consider Monday night a terribly short week, but Tuesday is, you're approaching what a Thursday night game feels like from the week before. So that's pretty much all I had for those games, and we got wins, and we feel good about it, and we're on the right track. And I do have a take about this Thursday game, but I want to talk basketball first. So let's bring up Kyrie. Let's bring up the Nets schedule. Because Kyrie's apparently going to come back. They have nobody right now. And so it makes sense that they're begging him to come back, right? And somehow they're 21-9, although they haven't impressed me at all. NBA team stats offense. I really just haven't liked it, but it goes back to last year. Like, you watch them and you're like, I don't know about all this. And then you look at the stats at the end of the year and they're just like super elite offensively. In fact, I think they were number 1. Offensive rating for sure last year, and in a million different stats. But even this year, offensive rating wise, I just haven't liked what I've seen. I mean, they've had nobody. They're 14th in offensive rating this year, and net rating they're 6th. So their defense has actually kept them in it somehow, and KD just going God mode. But let's just assume they're going to drop a couple games, and then they get KD and Harden back after the protocol stuff, and Kyrie is ready to play with them come the new year. We got to look at their schedule because you can't play home games unless something changes. So we're looking at, let's say, what are they, 21-9. Let's do some projections here. These 3 games get postponed. Who knows what's going to happen with that? They play the Lakers. They're not going to postpone this game in all likelihood. They're going to try to get those guys back for this game and do a marquee 8 o'clock game. Somehow, miraculously, they'll probably be all cleared and ready to play. Let's say they beat the Lakers, and let's say they split these 2 games with the LA teams on a road trip, and let's say they beat Philly. So we're looking at like 22-10, 23-10. And then let's say Kyrie comes back here but can only play in road games. So he's going to play 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. What entertaining stuff. 20, 21, 22, 23, 24 games. That's all he's going to play is 24 games at most. That's if he misses nothing. He plays on back-to-backs on road trips. He misses no games, comes off the bench, and is apparently ready to play in January, which I'm completely making up. There's no reporting that says that. But at most, let's call it 20 games, because he's probably not going to play in all of them. That's if he doesn't get hurt. I mean, let's just say it's 20. Let's even say they go, in those 20 games, if they go 15-5, that's unbelievable. But I don't think it necessarily even matters because they're going to make the playoffs and probably be in the top 4 seeds or whatever. But the question really becomes like, even with him, it'll help them for the regular season, of course. Come playoff time, is he allowed to play in home playoff games? And if not, do they want home court? Is there some weird situation where they can't tank because they're asking him to come back for home games, but do they start sitting Harden and Durant in home games when Kyrie's not playing anyway and just like try to get out of home court advantage? Because when push comes to shove, like in the Eastern Conference Finals, if you get there, you don't want home court. If Kyrie can only play on the road, you probably, I don't know. Do you prefer to play home without Kyrie or on the road with Kyrie? It's maybe about even, so maybe you don't worry about it. But it'll be funny if come like March and April, if they start to try to massage their schedule and rest some people to like fall down a spot or 2 and make sure that they don't have home court in the Eastern Conference Finals. Who knows if that'll happen? What I'm curious about is like, I've just been so uninspired by their team. Even though their record is good, I get that. I feel like they've played a bunch of bad teams though. I'm not going to go through and count the schedule again, but they should have a better record than they do, I think. So is this team, even with Kyrie, like, is it enough to win the title? Probably, I guess. But if your 4th best player is Aldridge, who's been good this year, so even let's just say he fits, right? Because you can play him at center and there's not that many. Like, how are you going to beat Philly if they decide that they can trade Ben Simmons and go get an asset? I mean, I don't know if Philly can possibly get there. That's their problem. That's why I've done multiple shows already on why Philly should be trading Simmons now. Get your mojo going, get some wins because you have a matchup nightmare that the Nets can't deal with. Maybe Milwaukee can, but still. Aldridge is a cute little center. I mean, so disrespectful. He's a great player, but he can't guard anyone big. And then beyond that, you have nothing. Like, I haven't liked Patty Mills this year. He's fine as like a 9th man off the bench. Joe Harris is injured. and he hasn't shot the ball well at all, so what's the point of even having him there? David Duke is named after a white supremacist. He's not, but you get it. Kessler Edwards, I mean, who are you? Nick Claxton has played fine. Again, he's like a ninth man. Bruce Brown, another ninth man. They just don't, they're missing guys. Has to be a buyout team. They have to fill in something. They need a wing player that can play 3-and-D and be good. It's not Bembry. It's not Cam Thomas. Blake Griffin has looked done again, even though he looked good last year. Maybe he gets it going. I don't think so. I just don't think Langston Galloway is on this team. Really, Long Island kid. He played 2 games, I guess. Paul Millsap has looked cooked. They still need to find it. Like, even if you get Kyrie back, there's still huge problems. I don't know. We watched them be good last year, and they lose because Kevin Durant's foot is on the line. But I just don't know. Without Kyrie full-time, which apparently we're not going to get, I just feel so uninspired watching Durant and Harden try to drag this corpse of a roster around. And is Kyrie really going to fill that? Maybe, because if you look at usage rates, maybe StatMuse has it. Okay, usage. You're at 31 for Durant, which should not change, although he needs to play fewer minutes. I mean, that's the key to getting Kyrie back, is like just relief for Harden and Durant. Jeez, you can't be playing him 37 minutes a game. The guy did have an Achilles injury recently. Remember that, right? And he's being used like he has to be used constantly to win some of these games. So they're 21-9, but they're using a lot of the fuel in their tank to get to 21-9. That's why they're begging Kyrie to come back. But you have Aldridge at a 22. I mean, Day'Ron Sharpe, he's only played 10 games. He's not really at a 24. But you have guys up here like this that you're like, oh my God, Cam Thomas has to have a 20 usage rate. That can't happen. So if Kyrie comes back and his becomes 25, then all of a sudden you're at 30, 25, and 25. You're already at 80% for your whole team. Not everyone else has to do a whole lot. You bump Aldridge down to 10, and you're at 90. That's as high as any team is going to have for their 4 players. But I still worry about the depth. I don't want any of these other players on my team. Like, none. Like, Paul Millsap can... No, he can't. I don't want him on my team. Like, Patty Mills can play on my team. I can give him a 5% usage or 10, you know? And I guess that's your rotation, I guess. Is just like, who's in here, though? They have to get some buyout players. They have to. They're not done when they get Kyrie back. Like, this is not a finished product. Because you got Durant, Harden, Kyrie, Aldridge, Patty Mills. Who else do I want in my rotation? I guess Claxton's going to have to play some minutes. Fine. That's 6. Bruce Brown. I don't really want Bruce Brown in my rotation. I guess that's 7. You need at least one big buyout piece that can have a 15% usage rate and do something on the wing, or do something as a small ball power forward or something to try to help them. They need another piece. Trade deadline, something. I don't know what they're going to give up. The flip side to it is, are they bringing Kyrie back to maybe trade him? I mean, I don't think so, because no one's going to give up anything for him unless you can do a Kyrie Simmons deal, which we've done to death on this show. Go back to the other YouTube videos and watch those. That would be interesting, you know. Then this all makes sense to me. But Kyrie coming back, I just don't think fixes all the problems. You still have to have in home games LaMarcus Aldridge having a 25% usage rate or something, or higher. Like, I don't know what you're supposed to do there. So they still have a lot of decisions to make. Like, this isn't done just because Kyrie comes back. And the road thing is interesting, and I worry about them when it comes to playoff time. And you look at the NBA standings and you're like, okay, will they beat the Bulls? Of course. I really like the Cavs. I think the Cavs provide matchup problems to the Nets, honestly, because Garland can score on both Kyrie and Harden, no problem. And you don't have a defender. You're not going to throw Bruce Brown out there. Maybe you have to, but you don't have a stopper for Garland. And Mobley provides big matchup problems for them because he can. I'm not going to say he can defend Durant, but he has the body to do that kind of thing. And he makes their defense really good. And they have some solid role players. They have a lot of size. Jarrett Allen can really bother the Nets. Revenge series for... Imagine it. Imagine the Cavs play the Nets in a playoff series and they're healthy. And you're like, oh, Jared Allen's going to go 20 and 20 every single game. They don't have anyone to deal with him. What are you going to play Nick Claxton and hope he does anything? And so him and Mobley, like they're big. It makes sense to me. They have wing defenders. They have a Okoro. They have two guards. Rubio can come in and be good. They would miss Sexton in this series, sadly. But they have Kevin Love off the bench. Like they're way deeper. I don't know. I like that. I think the Heat could give them problems with Bam. I don't know if they have enough firepower, but maybe. I mean, if you have Lowry and Hero and Butler as a wing trio against Kyrie, Harden, and then Durant and Bam just go at it, maybe there's something there. I think the Bucks are a nightmare for them because they can't guard Giannis at all. The Sixers are a nightmare for them. I just don't think this shapes up that well for the Nets. They can beat bad teams, obviously. I'm not saying they're bad. They're going to be unbelievable offensively once they get all three of them back in road games. But then you are saying we have to win every road game, basically, because we might lose at home. Like, we're putting way too much stock into road playoff games, which are not easy to win when you get deep in the playoffs. So, this saga isn't over just because Kyrie decides to come back. And by the way, Kyrie's going to come back and say nothing. He sat out all this time, and then he's just going to be like, yeah, we're back. It's all good. No stance, no take, no manifesto, no nothing. He's just going to play. It feels weird. So I don't think we're done here. I haven't seen any new news. Let's see what Google has for me. Dramatic return on Christmas Day against the Lakers. I mean, of course, that would make a lot of sense. He could debut at any time. He's in the protocols now. So if he passes, who knows? It won't shock me if he plays on Christmas now that I think about that. But I don't think he's ready. Like, is he in basketball shape? We don't know anything about it. We don't know anything about anything. And so we'll obviously update this in a future episode and talk Nets once we get further. But I just don't think this fixes as much as people are thinking it might. And road games just aren't enough. And, like, if we're looking at winning a title, Kyrie's either going to need to change his tune and get vaccinated, which doesn't seem like is going to happen. Or New York needs to change their rules, which I don't think is going to happen. Or I don't know. I don't know what happens. I don't know how they fix this, and I don't think they match up admirably if they don't have Kyrie in home games against a lot of these teams in the East. So I think they got more issues than people are giving it credit for. But I can't beat that horse to death anymore. So, yeah, I guess that's my stance. Although, also, you get Kyrie back, but let's not forget that with Kyrie being good on the court offensively and launching them into a new stratosphere that only the Warriors can compete with offensively, which would be an awesome series to watch, by the way. I think the Warriors would smash them because they just have so much more depth. And they can play all their players in home games. But when Kyrie comes back, he brings with him, for all the good that he brings, which is a lot, he brings with him the headache that is Kyrie Irving. We watched it happen in Cleveland. He stormed his way out of a LeBron James team. We watched it happen in Boston. He flamed out there. Everyone doesn't seem to like him. Does he make the locker room worse? I mean, I guess there's no depth players that need to like you here because none of them are worth anything. They might get rid of all of them anyway. But, like, let's not act like it's all sunshine and rainbows when Kyrie walks back through the door. He has some explaining to do. Maybe he just won't, but that's weird. It seems like he was making a stance by sitting out, and now he's just coming back quietly. It's all very bizarre. I just feel like the shoe hasn't even dropped on this story yet. And all of a sudden he's going to come back and play in 3 days. I don't know. I just think we're going to have a story. So I'm saying that I'm not saying anything, but I'm also saying that we're going to say something. That makes sense. I'm telling you that makes sense. But yeah, I won't go on about it. Okay. Let's talk Thursday night football. And as you can tell, I want to squeeze more hoops into this thing, and I want to talk college basketball, and I like to talk UFC. Thankfully, we're done. Not thankfully, I love the UFC, but we're done for a little while. And I love boxing, and we'll get to hockey come playoff time. It's not my favorite sport, but I do very much enjoy it, and playoffs are interesting. And before you know it, we'll have a baseball league again. And I want to talk about a lot of different things, but football, especially this week, just takes a lot of precedence. So Thursday, we have Niners-Titans. And if you've been watching, I've been so out on the Titans for so long that I forget that when they do get healthy, maybe they are better. I've just written them off because they haven't been healthy and they still don't seem it. Now, I think Julio Jones, he did get hurt again, the same hammy. But yeah, he practiced in full today. Like, everyone was like, he's going to go back on the IR. His season's over. Like, no, he's actually totally fine. And it could have been a precaution that they pulled him out of that game, although they needed to win it. But whatever. Not that I think Julio has done much of anything. I mean, here's the injury. Ran several explosive routes, had a target. Last play was second and goal. Does he stumble on the top of the play? I don't know. I mean, who knows? But so they might have him on Thursday. So he practiced in full. It'd be weird if he didn't play, right? And then AJ Brown might come back. If practice continues to go well, but he's this is a funny tweet. AJ Brown, DK Metcalf, and Hunter Renfrow all in the same draft. Back on the Titans practice field Tuesday. I would imagine that he's going to play in this game. He's eligible to come off the IR. I don't see why he wouldn't play if he's practicing. So they do have both their receivers back. The problem is this team is still built around Derrick Henry. Like, I can't be blinded by this. They need Henry. They need all three of them badly. This is almost like a. I like their defense a lot, by the way. I really do. So I'm not trying to poo on them. I'm just saying I've been fading them, and the reasons I'm fading them is because without Henry, they don't have an identity, and I still stand by that, especially against a good team. I don't like their running backs. I think they just have a committee of guys. They're fine. Foreman is fine. They still have line issues. Their defense is good. I like the under in this game for sure. So think about that. It's at 44. You could tease that up to 50. I mean, I haven't put it in my picks, but I'm thinking about it. Just to put that out there. But anyway, the reasons I bring all this stuff up is because there's no other way to judge the Titans based on anything other than their three offensive players. It's almost a lot like the Nets. Totally planned that, by the way. Perfect segue. Because they have three guys. And Julio hasn't done a single thing all year. So basically the equivalent of Kyrie, I guess. But he's played and hasn't done anything. Now we're trying too hard for the Nets thing. But I just think they have no depth, which worries me. If Julio leaves this game, or if AJ Brown leaves this game, they're both dealing with issues coming back from injury. What happens? They just lose, right? They all of a sudden can't move the ball. I don't believe Tannehill is like a carry your team type of quarterback. Neither is Jimmy G. But I don't know. Without Henry, I just can't possibly pick this team to win games against good teams. I just don't buy it. Because even when Brown and Julio were there, it's still Henry's show. He's still getting insane amount of carries and touches. And I just don't think you can replace that. And what if it takes a minute for AJ Brown and Julio to get into this game? Now, the Niners secondary has played better lately, but I haven't really loved them all year. So maybe they do pass it pretty well in this one. So I do like this Titans defense. I mean, we're getting to why I picked what I have picked at the end of the show. And it's going to be a tease for the Niners because I do try to find the spot where the Titans will kick it back up again. I said weeks and weeks ago when we first started the show, it's time to fade them. I've been saying it about Baltimore now too. And then eventually they'll come back to where you want to be on their side again because they'll be so devalued that they get their guys back. Is this that week? I don't think so on a short week. I worry about that for them. For once, the Niners might be the healthier team, although who knows about that? Eli Mitchell won't play. I guess their injuries are about equal. And I don't love the spread because you're getting the Niners as a road favorite, which is huge. I mean, what did this game open at? Tennessee -1, and now you're at San Francisco -3.5, even though Tennessee is getting their two receivers back. So that's weird. But I like the way the Niners have been playing. I think they play bully football. I think this will be a really physical game. I don't think you can shut down the Niners running game necessarily because Trent Williams is the best offensive lineman in the league. and he's been playing like it. His numbers are just off the charts. He's like breaking PFF's rankings. So even though the Titans have been playing well, I think the Niners will find a way to sustain drives and at least get into the red zone, and we'll see if Jimmy G can figure that out. But when you have Kittle, it's like, yeah, they should be all right. Even though the Titans are pretty well equipped to stop this Niner team. So I know I keep talking about reasons why the Titans might be better. I just am not at all ready to take a team that has looked this way on a short week against a really good physical opponent. That's what I don't like. This is a team that struggled with the Saints, lost to the Texans, lost to the Patriots, beat the Jaguars, but who cares, and lost to the Steelers last week, and now play on a short week where they might, I mean, their tackles are out. Like, the whole left side of the offensive line is out. I don't like that. I don't think A.J. Brown and Julio make up for losing your whole offensive line against a tough physical defense. I just also, for all the reasons I named, am not comfortable with laying 3.5 with Jimmy G on the road on a short week and the Niners being a good team, but not necessarily a Super Bowl contending team. So for that reason, I bring you to the picks for today. And of course, come Friday, we will review this Thursday game to start the Friday show, and then we will pick every game. We'll make our official picks for the weekend. We'll give you some insight on each game if we can for pool purposes. Some of them are disgusting, and I want to skip past them quickly, but we will try. And for today, I like a lucky 7-point teaser because the spread is Niners minus 3.5. I want to bring that up to Niners plus 3.5. I know going through 0 isn't great, but you get a lot of key numbers there. 3.5 is an important number. 3 is an important number. And then 3 on the other side is an important number, and 3.5 on the other side is an important number. So I like being able to get that with the 7-point tease, and I will link that in with a Christmas Day game, Packers home against the Browns. It's a 7-point spread currently. You bring that down to pick'em, and you get the Niners plus 3.5 at the Titans, Packers on a pick'em home against the Browns, who still are dealing with COVID stuff. And by the way, if they were fully healthy, they're not going into Lambeau on Christmas Day and beating Aaron Rodgers. It's just not happening. So, I mean, clip this when it loses, obviously. But Niners, Packers, 7-point tease. It's minus 130 because you got to buy the extra point, but so be it. And I really like that. Take that one. If you want a little extra nugget, since we talked NBA today, I put an NBA parlay in for tonight, which is a fun one. Bucks money line versus the Rockets. Bucks don't have Giannis, but they get Middleton back. They still have Drew Holiday. They're getting a little healthier slowly, even without Giannis. And the Rockets still don't have Jalen Green, and I just don't believe in the Rockets. I mean, I don't know how many times I need to say it on this show. And they're disgusting for what they're doing to John Wall. So we got the Bucks. I took the Nuggets money line at the Thunder. Nuggets are banged up, and I have been ragging on them a lot, but the Thunder still have to stop Jokic, and that's just not going to happen. So Bucks, Nuggets, and then I like the Clippers money line at the Kings. This line moved towards the Kings, even though they have a lot of people out with COVID. De'Aaron Fox is still out, although I kind of like their backcourt better with Halliburton and Hield. So that's it. It's an interesting thing, but still, a lot of their depth is out. They have like 5 or 6 players out with COVID. Clippers do have Paul George. They don't have Reggie Jackson, which moved the line an entire point, which I found nonsensical because Reggie Jackson has been not good this year. So they might be better with Bledsoe in there and Paul George taking over more offensive load. So I like the Bucks, Nuggets, and Clippers. We're fading the Rockets, Thunder, and Kings. Decent teams against really bad teams. And you're getting plus 160 odds on that 3-team parlay. So I really like that. So there's the Wednesday picks. There's the Wednesday show. We are wrapped. We'll be back Friday. We'll talk a ton of football. Who knows what happens before then? That'll be Christmas Eve, and then we're off the weekend. We'll be back on Monday. If you don't see me before then, have a happy holiday. Have a Merry Christmas. I hope all my picks hit so you don't yell at me. Not that any of you do. You're all very nice. I would love for you to subscribe to the YouTube channel. Search Mike the Mush. You're already here, so you know that. But if you're overhearing it, if someone's listening on the subway and you're like, I heard that. Maybe I'll look into it. There you go. Subscribe. Hit the like. Leave a comment, join the chat when we're live, or if you can't make it when you're live, it'll always be up there. I appreciate you watching. I'll catch you on Friday. Peace out.